Devontae, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm stoked. I'm ready for this.
Awesome. Awesome. So, wait, is this your first time on a podcast or you've been on a podcast before?
I've been on podcasts before. This is my
Awesome.
first time with you and sharing your lovely energy in this space.
Hey,
Mm.
it's reciprocal, definitely. So, yeah, speaking of loving energy, where did Sifu love come from? Where did that name get coined? And also the soul whisperer. I love this.
Yeah, I'm all about names and I'm about um using because I feel like names have a certain frequency and a vibration to them.
Hmm.
And with the right name, we're giving off the right not the right, we're giving off a certain intention and vibration to other people. And so the creation of my name is it's a very interesting process how I got to my name. So Sifu means teacher in Chinese, and teacher or master, and it's a title that's given to someone who's gone through rigorous martial arts training and is ready to pass on the knowledge from one lineage down to the next generation of students. And I've been studying martial arts now for about specifically Chinese kung fu for 15 this is actually my
Mm.
16th year.
Wow.
um so I've been studying it for a while,
Yeah.
and from day not day one from month one, my instructor was like, we want you to help out with the little kids. And so I started teaching the little kids the things that I was learning. um and I kept going, and as I got more advanced and I got to my black sash, I got to teach older students. And gosh, teaching teenagers was something. The teenagers were rough and
Mm.
difficult, but it really stretched my teaching capacity, my ability to be patient, to be open-minded, to be understanding and compassionate. It truly helped with that.
Hmm.
Um, and then over the years, I just kept teaching, and I talked to my head instructor like a couple years ago, and then he basically gave me an informal induction into the lineage and said, "You are now a Sifu."
Wow.
So he gave me that title, and I was like, "This feels special." I put in so many years of training, not for the title, but just because I love the art itself. I love kung fu.
Right.
Um, and now I feel like I'm able to go out and teach to other people. So that's how the name Sifu came up. Love is my new last name that I adopted about a year and a half ago, um, because I was in meditation one time and I felt into the vibration of my last name. And I traced my last name all the way back to its lineage and found out it came from a slave owner, and it
Mm.
was the name that was given to my ancestors, and they had passed it on, and now I had it.
Hmm.
And when I felt into that, I was like, this name never felt great to me. And it has no strong connection to my immediate family either. It was just sort of
Mm.
given to me. um, and then so I was like, okay, well, what name is going to best honor my ancestors and show them that I'm here and I'm present and I'm available and I'm a gateway to the ancestral realm and this modern day present realm.
Hmm.
And again, in meditation, the word love kept coming to mind. Love, 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 love. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a nice word. I guess it's a nice name. I don't know if it's for me though. And I talked to my grandmother, and she told me that her great grandmother's last name was also Love. And I
Mm.
was like, oh, I never knew that. And it's something that
Wow.
she had never talked about because she has so many memories from her past that she doesn't necessarily casually discuss. And I was like, okay, so this is interesting. The name Love came to me in a meditation. It's related to my Native American side of my ancestors. And I
Wow.
was like, okay, so I'm going to adopt this name. And so that's how Sifu Love came to be. That's how Sifu Love was born into the world. And every time I say that name, it feels strong because
Hmm.
it has the resonance of my ancestors, and it has um, the faith and the ambition from all of my years of martial arts training.
Hmm.
So that is my name.
Awesome. Wow. And it came to you during meditation. Like,
Hmm.
do you feel that you were being that you were in communication with the ancestors?
I definitely think I was. There's so many times where I've gone into there's a specific meditation practice that I use to connect with my ancestors that they actually showed me how to do. Um, and the more that I do this practice, the more that I pick up little tidbits of information that I ask my grandmother, and she's like, "Oh yes, that's true," or she gives me information, and that information somehow appears in the meditation, and it evolves into new information that I give to her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that actually feels resonant and feels like what I know of her great grandmother."
Yeah.
Yeah, I downloads from them in meditation, and it's really beautiful. It's beautiful to feel that I have thousands of years of history um, at my fingertips, in a
Yeah.
sense, like being able to communicate and ask them questions and understand a little bit of what their life was like and how they went about a situation, then
Hmm.
gives me some perspective as to how I might consider going about a situation.
Yeah.
I don't follow their advice all the time, maybe like 60% of the time, but they give me really good feedback and really good perspective that I can utilize to see the world that we currently live in a little bit more of an expansive way.
Yeah. Wow, this really reminds me of, like Avatar, The Last Airbender, when Aang, you're bridging both worlds together, bro. Like, the Avatar, what, Roku, Kyoshi, he was talking to all of them,
Mhm.
right?
Exactly. And it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that TV show, Avatar The Last Airbender, I swear when I first saw it, and I'm not talking about the movie because that shall not ever be named again. But that TV show, when I watched it, it had such an impact on me. And I didn't really understand why. Like when I was watching it, I felt like I was Aang. I felt like I was Roku. I felt like I was Kyoshi. I felt like I was Karuk. Like I
Hmm.
felt a strong connection to them. And I'm like, why do I love these characters so much? Why am I so invested in the choices that they make, whether or not they die or whether or not, like, how they go about saving the world and bring about justice? And when I started to look at my life, and I'm like, well, I've studied the four styles of Kung Fu that the Avatar studies.
Right.
I have a deep connection with my ancestral lineage that I go to in meditation. And I'm like, that there's some interesting correlations that I'm seeing to my own life. And that's why I'm so drawn to the series and to the characters. And I feel really invested. Like, I feel like they are my family, and I have to like watch over them as I watch the shows in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that show is timeless. It's timeless. Yeah. It will
It
forever
is.
live on as a classic in my eyes. Yeah.
Hmm.
So when did the Soul Whisperer come about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I haven't talked about that ever. So, um, I went into solitude and silence at some point. It's actually this year, around the turn of the season from winter to spring. And that period of silence was super, super helpful for me. I try to go into silence for at least a week as the seasons change. So I'm actually about to go into silence for the shift into summer.
Mm.
Um, and each time I go into silence, there's something new that is unlocked. I'm able to go deeper into myself, realize something, pick up on something that then eventually grows and sprouts into one of the ways that I express myself in the world, or an offering that I have, or just something. Um, and in this last period of silence, it's probably the easiest period of silence that I had, and that was just because I had been surrounded by so much noise, like city noise. I'd been surrounded by people for so long, and I really needed some escape. And being surrounded by like the city noise and the news and the media culture and people, I realized that I was losing sense of what my soul was trying to tell me. I was so focused on what culture was saying, what the news was saying, that I lost touch with my soul for that period of time. And when I went into that period of silence, I shut myself off from everything. I only watched, let me tell you, I only watched The Matrix
Mm,
and the movie Soul, and that's
mm,
it. Those are the only things that I watched, and because I wanted to reprogram my brain and sort of dump everything. But then I was like, I like The Matrix and I like Soul, and these are good
mm,
ideas to circulate. So I watched those things, and at some point during that week of silence, the name the Soul Whisperer came to mind, and it literally sounded like a whisper that was coming from my soul, and it was
mm,
whispering up through my body, and it was trying to come out of my mouth. And the first time that I said the Soul Whisperer, when I called myself the Soul Whisperer on camera, I was like, wow. Like it felt
mm.
really powerful to say that. Like that moment was a spiritual awakening for me.
Yeah.
So the name came to me in silence, and it's a title that I gladly accept and I embrace, because the work that I do is teaching movement practices that help people connect to their own soul, that help people get information, get news, get media from their own soul. And as they create that dialogue with their soul, they learn so much more about themselves, how they want to be in the world, how they want to interact with other people. And yeah, so it's just a powerful term. And again, I'm so specific about the words that I use.
Yeah.
And when I use that word, it reminds me that, I feel like one of my duties in this lifetime is to help people connect with their soul,
Yeah.
and to help make sure that they are operating from the voice of their soul, which is from within, rather than the voice of society and culture, which is from the outside
Right.
sphere.
Right.
So yeah, that's where the name came from.
Nice. So being able to go internally, shutting out all the external noise, that we
Mm-hmm.
could be bombarded with, I definitely resonate with that, and it makes me want to take a silent retreat myself. Oh
Do
man.
it, do it. I think silence is one of the most nutritious things. Silence and solitude. And it doesn't have to be like a week. I do a week because I am extreme. Honestly, if I could do a month, I would, but that would put me so far out of society that that's too much. But I tell people to, like, find, like, make half of your day a silent day, and just be very intentional about pushing away everything and just going into yourself. Maybe you read a book, and that can be a regular practice, and then maybe that extends to a day or 2 days. But even then, like, just having that regular habit of going into intentional silence is something. There's always something that comes up.
Yeah. I'm really interested as well. You know, Often I say this, but The Matrix is my favorite movie of all time. So,
Yay.
what made your list, for those two movies that you watched? Like how did The Matrix make your list, and what did you gather from it, since that was the one of the only films that you watched?
Yeah. I'm going to be honest with you. I watched The Matrix when it came out in 2000, like around 2000.
Hmm.
Um, and I liked it, but I didn't really get it. At that point, I was too young to really understand the depth of that movie. And that movie has so much depth to it.
Whew. Yeah.
So much. And it's so good. I'm kind of worried about this next Matrix movie they're making, but that's a whole nother thing.
Hmm.
Um, and so I hadn't seen it since I had first seen it, like around 2000. And people always talk about how amazing it is, how mind shifting it is. I see memes of it on Tumblr and on Facebook and like everywhere. So I was like, so I had this in my consciousness that this is a very good movie. It's a consciousness shifting. It's a movie about awakening and realizing the truth about reality itself. And so for some reason, I kept not watching it. Like I just, like, I was like, I could watch it, but no, I'm not going to. And I kept pushing it off and pushing it off. And then when I was in silence, I had gone into meditation, and I had this visualization where like I saw my soul, and around my soul was like little clumps of, it kind of looks like gum. And those clumps of gum was like society and culture kind of imposing its way onto my soul.
Mm.
And when I saw that, it like broke my heart, and I was like, well, what can I do to, scrape off this gum to get to the beauty and essence of my soul. And I got just flashes of the movie, the Matrix.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm getting flashes. Let me actually watch it. Let me just actually do it. Um, and I watched it, and it is such a great movie. It's a great trilogy. It's there's so much to take away from it. And as I was watching it, there's so many quotes that came to mind that I wrote down that I'm eventually gonna like create this whole project around. But
Nice.
I think the one thing that stood out to me, let me see. Um, we have a deep power within us
Hmm.
that if we spend time tapping into it, if we believe in, then we have access to it and we can bring it out into whatever dimension we're in.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I saw Neo like believe that he was the one, and
Yeah.
then he became the one because he believed he was the one, that was really powerful for me, because I was like, I have these beliefs about myself. I believe myself to be the avatar. I believe myself to be a strong, powerful, magical black witch.
Yeah.
I have all these things that I believe about myself.
Yeah.
And if I just like stop trying to, if I stop trying and just allow myself to be these things, what's going to happen? What's going to
Mm.
happen if I just allow myself to be these things? Um, and it was a little bit after that the name Soul Whisperer came up for me, and it was a little bit after that the healing work that I was doing with people got amplified massively.
Hmm.
It was after that I was able to tap even further into my ancestry and my past lives. And so it was this acceptance of my own power, this vast, limitless, unknown power that allowed me to be that limitless, boundless power.
Yeah.
So I think the movie like just reinstilled that message. And again, like that's a very basic message from the movie, but I needed to hear it at that moment.
Hmm.
And I think it sunk so deeply because I had not watched anything else. I literally had, like, I had nothing else to feed my culture, or my pop culture addiction. And so when I watched that, it like went straight through my system, and it just completely shifted
Right.
my perspective of reality.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's always cool, hearing people's perspectives because everyone's is different.
Hmm.
We're all different, so we see things in different ways. So I love that, and I also love, what you were talking about with the gum, sticking to you, and that reminded me of the scene when he's sitting down with Morpheus, and Morpheus, is giving him the red pill versus the blue pill, and he
Hmm.
takes the red pill and he looks over at a mirror to the side of
Hmm.
him, and he puts his hand, to the mirror, and it sticks to him and it starts like covering him, so
Hmm.
that's what that scene, it reminded me of what you said about the gum. Yeah.
Oh, you are a true fan of the series, because I completely forgot about that scene.
Yeah, yeah, they stay in my mind. I don't know how many times I've seen that movie. It has to be at least 200, at least.
I mean, hey, there's movies that I've seen that many times, and for me, I would say Kill Bill is
Oh
the one
yeah.
thing that I've seen at least 300, 400
Woo,
times.
woo.
So yes,
Oh man, the first or the second one?
both. And
Okay.
let me tell you, so what I like to do now is, because I'm so conscious of how the movie actually flows, what I'll do is I'll go back between the second and first movie, and I'll watch it in chronological order.
Hmm.
So like I pick up the piece from the second movie, and then go back to the first movie, and then go back and forth and back and
Oh
forth.
wow. Oh wow.
And when
Okay.
I watch it that way, it's so fascinating. I'm like, wow. It it doesn't really shift your perspective on the movie, because I mean, I think the thing with Kill Bill is like because the plot jumps around so much, it kind of brings forth your attention and it just makes you focus a little bit more because you're trying to put together the puzzle pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And when you watch it in chronological order, you know, you don't necessarily have to do that. So there's not as much urgency of like focus. But I don't know, for me, it's nice to see the story from like start to finish in that more
Mm-hmm.
linear way.
Mm-hmm. Now, was your seafood like pie may?
No, no, no.
I hope not. Yeah, because you talked about rigorous training. I was like, how more rigorous can you get than that? You know.
Right. Yeah, my main seafood, the one that inducted me into the world of seafoods, he actually he was in the military, and then he left the military and trained intensively. He's one of the kindest people ever, but he looks extremely intimidating.
Okay.
But like the second he opens his mouth or he smiles, like you just want to melt in his arms. He's like such a sweet person.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have one teacher one seafood that's similar to Pai Mei when I was training in China. I actually met him on a mountain, which is funny enough.
Wow.
And at that point, my Mandarin was advanced, but it wasn't fluent. And he was talking to me in straight fluent Mandarin with a little bit of a Harbin accent, so it was a little bit like difficult to understand him. But he just kept talking and talking and talking, and I felt like he was yelling at me because I wasn't fully getting what he was saying. But he was just really passionate about talking about martial arts, and he was happy that a foreigner was in his space wanting to learn his practice. So he was just really eager, and he
Mm-hmm.
kept throwing new techniques and not objects. He didn't throw objects. He threw techniques and stuff at me because he was really excited. So it kind of felt like Pai Mei in
Mm-hmm.
a sense in that way. But he also was extremely loving and caring. Whereas Pai Mei was a little bit it's a little bit more harsh and difficult and heartless.
Yeah, I mean, ripping people's eyes out their sockets, you know, and
Yes.
the what was it, the 5 point palm exploding heart technique or something?
Yes, the 5 point palm exploding heart technique. Yes. Oh God, I love it. I've tried to recreate that on my own. And just you know, out of fun. I haven't been able to fully replicate it, but I'm close. I feel like I'm close. I'm almost there.
Oh man, you're almost there, huh? You're concocting. Oh man, like I thought it was. Oh man, like when you even think of how something like that could be achieved, like somebody they already know that it's over, but it's like
Hmm.
they gotta take those steps. You know, they gotta
Hmm.
walk it out. Like,
Hmm.
wow.
Hmm. Hmm. And you know that's one of the things that I actually really appreciate about that technique. Is like it's the realization of death, but still going on.
Mm,
So
mhm,
it's like, you know, if you imagine like you know you're about to die, do you keep living your days as if you're about to die, or do you keep living your days as if, you know, these are your last breaths and you're going to fully enjoy them or take them on, you know?
right.
And so that particular the 5 point palm splitting heart technique is, I think, a beautiful metaphor for how we continue on even though we know that there's an end to something.
Mhm,
um, and I think about that for I thought about that when I was training initially and I was getting ready for my black belt. Because I had done so much training up until that point, and I was like, well, what's going to happen after I get my black belt? Like, what is my life going to be? And for me, when I was going through my test, that test felt like a death in some way. I mean, it was grueling, so it was like difficult. Um, but I felt like I had lost an older version of myself. And from that loss, I was able to pick up some pieces and find this newer Devante, this newer Sifu love that
mhm,
wanted to take on the world and spread the magic of Kung Fu to the world. So that
mhm.
felt like a death to me that then rebirthed me into something else.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. And speaking of spreading that to the world, I've taken a few of your classes. I've had some sessions with you where we did qigong.
Yee.
Yeah. And you're healing kung fu, man. Like, I really enjoy the movements that you incorporate. I've never done those types of movements with anybody else, but I also love how you always center in, and you always, like, it seems like you take a mindful moment and you center yourself and you say something like, okay, this is what's coming in right now.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be like, okay, what does the class need? What do we need
Mm-hmm.
today? And then you'll feel it out. You'll say, okay, this is what's coming in. And then we'll go into another movement. So I would
Mm-hmm.
love to know, first off, like, what are you tapping into when you feel that? And also just, would love to just hear you about how you started healing kung fu and where is it today?
Hmm. Well, your reflection almost brings tears to my eyes. Like to be honest, because that's exactly what I do. Like I turn on the camera, people come in, and I take a second to feel what's going on in the room, in the space. And the reason I do that is because I've gone to so many other qigong trainings, teachings. I've gone to yoga teachings. I've gone to these things, and I always no, I shouldn't say that. I often feel like the teachers have this sort of script as to what they want to do. And that's great, but I don't feel them trying to understand what's going on with me. I don't feel them trying to engage and adjust according to what's happening within the room. Um, and that was really jarring to me. I'm very sensitive to energy, and I can feel when someone is not tuned into my energy, or I can feel when someone's not trying to tune in to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm doing like really deep spiritual level work with them, but they're not tuned into me, then there's this disconnect, and it feels jarring and it feels uncomfortable to me. So when I started teaching, I was like, I want to make sure that I'm tuning in to the best of my ability as to what's going on within the actual room, what's going on with the space. And I might have a plan as to what the class is going to be, but I don't need to be stuck to that plan. Like that plan can completely disintegrate, and then it can become a whole new class that actually is benefiting the people that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what I do is I I just stop for a second, and I tune in back to my own breath, and I listen to my soul and see what my soul is trying to say in the moment. And then I open my ears, my psychic ears, and I listen to what the souls of the students are trying to say. So like one student like a couple days ago, the class that I taught, one student's soul was like screaming this idea of forgiveness, and another student's soul was screaming anger. And so like I kept hearing like these emotions or these spiritual experiences, and I was like, okay, I want to make sure to provide something that's going to feed that person's soul. Um, so I very quickly, in like 30 seconds, I just kind of scramble in my mind, and I'm like, okay, this is what the class is going to be. And then the class sort of becomes that. And part of my ability to do that is one, I've been teaching in a formal academic setting for about 10 or so years. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very good at creating a curriculum like on the fly. That's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm extremely sensitive to other people. And the thing is, I can feel when I'm talking to someone if they if they understand what I'm saying, or if the movement lands, I can feel that. And so I try to make sure to teach in a way that I'm teaching the form proper to its authentic state, but I'm trying to say certain things that I feel like the soul is calling for, or it's asking for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of the space that I get into when I'm practicing. Um, and for me, it's really magical. It's magical to be there. And that's the whole notion behind healing kung fu. Is a it's a I talk about it as a traveling martial arts school, because that's very much what it is. And now everything's online, but it's a school that helps people get in touch with their bodies, get in touch with their minds, get in touch with their souls, and use the kung fu movements to align the three. And when the mind, body, soul is aligned, I feel like that's when we can truly heal. That's when
Mm.
we can truly have deep level shifts that are transformative, sustainable, and they land for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And to be completely like transparent, like the word kung fu in Chinese literally just means hard work.
Hmm.
And so the name of my company is Healing Hard Work, if you were to
Yeah.
translate it. And
Yeah.
so, like, we just put in the hard work to heal ourselves. And the
Hmm.
hard work is the movements, it's the mental exercises, it's the attempt at trying to find answers for the self. And through all of that hard work, people go into the class and they come out of the class feeling relaxed, feeling energized, feeling alive. Sometimes people leave the class feeling agitated, and that agitation is whatever is needed for them to move forward through their own life circumstances. And usually, what happens if that does happen, the agitation will sort of subside after like a couple hours when something happens, and then when the agitation subsides and they get really calm. And it's a really deep level of calm that comes after a storm.
Hmm.
So that's what I try to do within my classes and within the programs that I offer. And it's truly magical work. I'm unashamed at calling myself a magical being, and I bring my
Hmm.
magic into the classes as much as I can.
Yes, definitely you do, and I can vouch for it, being in a few of your classes myself and experiencing it firsthand, and also bringing my friend along one time. We just had a really good time exploring ourselves, exploring the body with the movements that
Mm.
you incorporated on the fly, which was very impressive. Like you say, it's, just very in the moment, the way that you tune in. And I love what you said, like putting in the hard work to heal ourselves, because
Hmm.
it's not like you're healing us, you're, allowing us and helping us and guiding us to do the work.
Hmm.
We got to do the work. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And all I'm doing is I'm facilitating the forms, and the forms are shapes in which you move the body and you orient the mind. And when you get into that form, into that shape, you do the work to heal yourself.
Hmm.
I'm so disappointed in many of the spiritual teachers that I've met, some of them famous and that I've worked with, who want to have this sort of savior complex, who are very comfortable with saying, I have this modality, you come to me, I will heal you, and your problems will go away. And then these people get attached, and the people come back to the healer over and over and over because the issue either keeps coming back or something else comes up. And then the people don't know how to heal themselves. They don't have the agency to work through their own issues. And that to me is really, really disappointing.
Mm.
And I wanted to make sure that I don't do that. And healing kung fu, the purpose of my teaching is so you learn enough that you no longer need me.
Right.
I'm literally just there to facilitate the initial steps of learning, and then you have the forms in your body. You might not remember all of the forms specifically, but you have the somatic memory.
Yeah.
And if you can go back into your imagination and think about some of the forms, then you're getting some of the benefits as it is, and you can come back to me and we can tune up. But you ultimately are doing the healing on your own, and I'm just providing the space for someone to do the hard work.
Yeah. 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 As you were speaking, I just remembered one of the forms that we did that you instructed. And I remember like telling myself, oh, I definitely want to, I don't want to forget this because it felt so powerful. It was like flexing my bicep in this way where I was pushing my arm down in the center and then bringing it up around my body and then
Mm-hmm.
putting it up in like a fist and then having the other one at
Mm-hmm.
my side and then switching, and it was just so simple but so like powerful. It just felt powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny because the second you said that, I knew before you described it, I knew exactly which form you were talking about.
yeah.
You're talking about shamanic liver fist, which is a
Yes, that's
super,
the one.
super powerful form. Yes. Ooh, that form is one of the forms that has really helped me understand anger and has helped me really process all that was happening around the Black Lives Matter movement, and realizing that my anger is not bad. I don't need to hide my anger. I don't need to push it away, but rather I need to express it in some sense. My anger can be procreative. It can go into an energy of creating something. And
Mm-hmm.
then that led me into creating new forms that then are able to help people work through certain issues. It led me to put on events. It led me to participate in some demonstrations, healing based demonstrations. And so, like, that particular form was so helpful for me to know how can I move forward with all this heaviness and this anger that
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling.
Yeah. Wow. Shamanic liver fist. I'm not gonna forget it. Yeah, I'm gonna remember it now. I forgot the name, but I remembered the form. So now
Yes.
I got the name again. Awesome. There's also something you were saying that really hit me and clicked, because you were talking about the healing that we do for ourselves. And I like on your page, you said something that I have not heard before, people saying about renegotiating our relationship with trauma, and that
Mm,
trauma isn't necessarily something that we can totally heal from or that we would want to. And I would love to
hmm.
hear, how did that come to you?
Yeah. So the teacher that I'm working with now, who's I'm actually about to begin testing for new qigong forms related to gender expression and transformation, and like those forms are super powerful. And in one of the sessions, um, she had said, like, everyone talks about healing their traumas, but how do you know when a trauma is healed? Like, what does that actually mean? And then she had mentioned for herself, she's like, I feel uncomfortable if someone's coming to me and saying, help me heal my trauma. Because, like, who am I to say that your trauma is healed? And your
Mm,
trauma is so unique to your own DNA code that you know, to heal something implies that it disappears, that it goes away.
mm,
And that's sort of my take on the idea of healing. And I completely agreed with what she said there. And trauma is a circumstance that has come into your life that has caused a sense of distress, has caused discomfort, has caused tension. And from navigating that, we're able to transform, we're able to become something else. And every time I say that, I have to say I'm not glorifying trauma. I'm not saying, oh, we need trauma in order to transform. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there's trauma that comes into our life, and if we're able to negotiate with it, if we're able to realize, okay, you are this trauma. This is how you've impacted me. This is what I've learned. This is the relationship that we have with each other. Once you're able to negotiate your relationship with your trauma, then you can see it as a stepping stone to who you are now,
mm,
to who you will be at some particular point. And I think for me, I've sort of evolved in my thinking around healing, in that healing seems, in our society, we think of healing as sort of a static process, as like you go to the doctor, they give you surgery, you're healed, it's done. Whereas for me, the word renegotiate is a constant process
mm,
of going back into the relationship, leaving, going back and leaving. So it kind of creates this continual container of work, which then leads to even more transformation. So I just think for me, the idea of renegotiating trauma is such a um, more it's a very healthy way of thinking about how we can approach our trauma.
mm,
There's some people who have since me talking about that, people who completely disagree, and they talk about how we can actually heal our trauma, and I think there is a level of healing that we can get to, but I just think it's helpful linguistically, because again, I'm so much about words. Words are very important to me.
right.
I think it's important linguistically that we think about renegotiating trauma, because it's a constant relationship. And one day you might feel really strong, one day you might feel really weak, one day you might feel sort of in between. And it's a constant process of realizing where you are in relationship to your trauma today and where you want to be the next day.
Yeah. Wow. That is such a unique take on something that, has definitely been talked about a time and time again, but it's such a fresh perspective that I find it so awesome. You talk about just renegotiating our relationship with trauma. I feel like it in my mind, I see myself, sitting in Starbucks, having a coffee
Mm-hmm.
with my trauma and acknowledging my trauma, having a conversation with trauma, and just saying like,
Mm-hmm.
how we doing? Like
Mm-hmm. How you doing?
how you doing? Yeah. And just like allowing it to feel heard, to feel seen, and not like healing it away as though I'm going to heal away a part of myself. Like you said, it's in your DNA, it's a part of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I find within our society is like a lot of people will push away they'll push away their traumas. They'll say their traumas don't exist. They'll repress them, and that just leads you to being even more unhealthy. It leads you to acting in ways that your trauma's controlling your behavior.
Hmm.
And just the idea of renegotiating, I like what you said, that image of being in Starbucks. Like I can visualize that moment for you. Like I see it. You're sitting there with your, I don't know, caramel macchiato or whatever people get at Starbucks. I don't drink coffee. Um, but it's such an important image to have, because I think that's how we attain true health, is being in constant negotiation with our tragedies, with our traumas, with our anxiety. And when we have that dialogue, there's so much more that we realize, and there's so much more that we can then um, integrate back into our being. Just having that conversation is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Earlier we were also talking when you spoke on the Matrix and the movies that you allowed to expand your consciousness during the silent period that you were
Hmm.
on your silent retreat. When it comes to expanding consciousness, I thought this was so awesome, seeing that you utilize fiction to reprogram the mind and expand consciousness with things like comic books and that
Hmm.
what you call Black Panther consciousness.
Yes.
Yo,
Yeah, that has been a huge game changer for me, like very much so. The Black Panther mythology is such it's so refreshing to me, because growing up as a black boy, and I didn't have a father around. I didn't really have an example of what it meant to be a a healthy black man. I had examples of unhealthy things around me that I saw, but I didn't have very many examples of a healthy black man. And seeing the Black Panther, seeing the way that he relates to his people, the love that he has for his people, the way
Mhm,
that he treats his generals, and just his whole demeanor, like that was like, this is a beautiful example of a powerful black person.
mhm,
And when I saw that, I was like, well, what of his behavior can I emulate? Like, in what way can I talk to people that has that sort of similar, like Black Panther like swag? You know, and it was really good practice for me to kind of look at his behavior and see, like, what can I pull into my own consciousness, and what do I not want to pull into my own consciousness. It
mhm,
became a negotiation between me and the Black Panther, and we were
mhm,
talking, like, this happened in meditation many many times, where we were sitting down. Actually, often when I do Black Panther work, I'm somehow near water, so I'm always swimming, or I'm like near the pool. But we're swimming, and then like he's sort of talking to me, and I'm learning more about him and what it represents. And then I'm like, okay, this is an interesting concept. Like, this is how the Black Panther works through negative energy. Let me try that. Oh, this
mhm,
worked for me. Oh, this didn't work for me. And then, now I have a new experience to try out and bring into my own being. And so whenever we work with fiction to reprogram our consciousness, we need to be very aware of ourselves and what feels authentic to us. And from there, we engage in fiction and we see what seems interesting, we try it out, and it's this push and pull in a way where you're bringing in ideas and you're pushing away ideas, and you're finding what feels most authentic to you through that process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. So you're unleashing your inner T'Challa.
Yes, I am. Though sometimes I feel more like Killmonger, but that's a whole different thing. But yes.
Hey. Seeing that in that comic book, the version of you, that picture was awesome too, with the locks, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that I got commissioned. It's so interesting. Like I got a download from my guides of like you should get an animated version of yourself. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't really care so much about that. But then I found someone on Instagram, I think his name is Wicca Arts, and he does amazing work. And I
Hmm.
was like, okay, well let me just throw out some ideas to him and see what he comes up with. And if I like the sketch, then we'll go with it. And I mentioned how I like the Black Panther and I work with the Black Panther when I do healings with people. I mentioned my connection with dragons and martial arts. I mentioned like I love having my braids because my braids help me feel more connected to my African ancestry.
Hmm.
Um, and then he drew something and I was like, this is amazing, let's keep going. So then we kind of kept adding different things to it, but that particular animation, I would say, is a compilation of so many mythological stories that I feel encapsulate my own being and the
Hmm.
way that I go about in the world. It has Avatar in it. It has magic, maybe Doctor Strange-ish stuff. It has Kung Fu. It has
Yeah.
Black Panther. It just has so much in it, and it has like the African diaspora. It has Native American stuff in it, and it just feels really good when I see that because then I'm seeing myself reflected back onto me, and I'm seeing myself as a mythological character, as a work of my own fictional art. And that's
Mm.
really helpful for me to then see myself beyond what I currently see. And that's one of the things that helps me expand myself and helps me when I want to do my own healing, because I believe if we want to heal, we need to imagine more than ourselves. We
Yeah.
can't just see ourselves as who we are now. We have to see ourselves as who we are after we're healed.
Yeah.
And that picture is a constant reminder of me using my imagination to see more of myself. So it's helping me flex my own imagination muscles.
Hmm. Oh my gosh, Devonte, that was beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Wow, this is so guided. Like you're channeling right now.
I
This is
feel like I
awesome.
am.
This is awesome, man. The way you said that, a work of your own fictional art. I was like, wow. It's like a painting, or you're leveling up your own avatar. You're upgrading yourself. A work of your own fictional art. That's awesome.
Yes, yes. Well, I have to say it's something about your presence, and you are extremely comforting and calming. You're very much like water. And so you're like water and earth at the same time. So it's very easy to kind of have this discussion with you and feel comfortable. So thank you.
Hey, it's my pleasure. That's ironic you say that because I am a water sign.
Mm,
I'm a Scorpio, and as well, water bending is what I gel with when it comes to the series. So,
mhm,
water bending when it came to like just the different ways that they were able to incorporate Tai Chi, in the show. I just enjoyed that. So
mhm.
now I'm just learning how to stay in the flow.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you're doing super well at it. Love it.
Thank you. You know, one more thing that you just mentioned about imagination, because that was something powerful that I saw on your page as well. That you said imagination is your greatest weapon. You know,
Mm.
when did that come to you, and how does that speak to you as well?
That's a really good question. it goes back to the idea that in order to heal, we need to imagine more of ourselves. But really, that goes back to my training when I was getting my master's in spiritual psychology. Um, we did so many activities on ourselves, and so that we had the understanding of the activity that we can then work with people on later. And I would say 90% of the activities required us to use the imagination. We had to visualize something. We had to um, sort of channel an image that came, or we had to draw something. And I found that we kept using the imagination. There was so much of the imagination. And that's all. And I realized that that's all what most meditations are. It's like you're sitting there, you're breathing, and then you're using the imagination in some way.
Hmm.
You're imagining a past life, or you're imagining a blue cloud of love, and you're absorbing that cloud into your being. And so it was just a huge moment for me to that period of time was a huge moment for me to realize that the imagination is a powerful tool that we can utilize in order to expand ourselves. um, and even now when I say that, like it, I just get really excited because no one's imagination is the same. Everyone's imagination is different, and the imagination is a conglomerate of all of your life's experiences, everything you've been exposed to, everything you haven't been exposed to, the things your soul has picked up on. um, so everyone's imagination is so different, and so because of that, it's something that reminds me of how unique we all are. And when we tap into our uniqueness, I feel like that's one of the things that allows us to truly understand who we are, and it helps us understand how we want to interact in the world, and it just feels really healthy and energizing. That's what it is. It feels energizing.
Yeah.
When you realize the ways that you're unique, you feel energized, and part of that is within the practices that I teach. There's this idea of the Jing, or the life force. And so when we tap into the imagination, the life force starts to fluctuate, and it becomes bigger and bigger, and it surges up into the body. And I think that the imagination is sort of the way in which that we grow our own life force, that we remind ourselves of how vital we are, of how powerful we are. And I think that's true because the people that I know to be the most powerful, the people that I think are really powerful, are people that have a really strong imagination.
Yeah.
People who are able to really like utilize their imagination and go all over the place and do a ton of things. They're not just writers or in movies and stuff like that. Even a mathematician can have a beautiful imagination. And that's something that I think is really strong and powerful.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And it just reminded me while you were speaking of the different times that you utilized and incorporated imagination for us during your sessions in healing Kung Fu, and just
Hmm.
drawing on our own imagination too during the movements like pulling on thread, in the
Hmm.
snare, and just moving around, and just really enjoyed, the visualizations that you kind of planted.
Planted, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that makes the type of qigong that I teach different. So, and this comes from the tradition called Moga Dao, where we pull in the imagination and we connect the imagination into the movements. So it's not like you're just taking your hands and you're bringing your hands to the side, but instead you're digging into the dirt and you're pulling up the dirt, and you're very carefully carrying it over to the side as to not let a single drop of soil fall out of your fingertips.
Mm,
And when I give that indication, people's bodies move very differently. And it's interesting to me, like when I use the imagination and I see someone's bodies react in a very different way, there's a level of intentionality that comes into the movement. And I think that's where the healing happens, because the soul is now awake. The soul is like, okay, I'm here, I'm present, I'm ready. And this it's the soul that's guiding the imagination into the movement, and it changes the quality of the movement itself. And that for me is really powerful to watch. It's so powerful to watch people express deep emotion, express memory, express something that's deep within them, express it through their bodies through a very simple movement. And yeah, it's just it's amazing to me how simple the movements are and
Mm-hmm.
how powerful they are. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
reminder that things that are truly magical and powerful are usually the most simplistic things.
Yeah.
They're not the complex things with like 80 different steps. It's really the most simple things are the things that have the deepest impact on us, that are deeply magical and powerful.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Yes, yes. Wow, this is soul food, man. Food for the soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel that. Oh gosh, this has been a great conversation. Thank you.
Definitely. Where can we find you, and where can people, schedule a qigong session with you if they'd like, and just information about you? Please let us know.
Sure, sure. So my website is healingkungfu.com, healingkungfu.com. And my Instagram is just at healingkungfu. And there's the option to book me through Instagram or through the website. This, let's see. So for this summer, I'm going to have some sporadic group classes, but I'm having a lot of collaborations with people to do programs and events throughout the summer. And then I'll continue my regular group classes in the fall. And right now, I'm actually enrolling people into my 3 month movement program, which is a
Awesome.
very deeply intensive. It's deeply intensive in the sense that, again, the movements are simple, but the psychology behind them is very complex, and um, it's very individualized. So it's very deep work for the individual person. And I guide us through a whole 3 month process of movements, of meditation, of reflection. So we really uncover who it is we are on the inside, who our soul is trying to inform us of, and helping us to embody that person. So we walk out into the world feeling like your true self, and not
Mhm,
feeling like you are all these TV shows that are telling you how to be, or how the magazines are telling you how to look, or how your parents have told you to behave or to act. You're
mhm,
no longer that. You are you. You are the embodied expression of your soul.
mhm.
And that's what I hope to help people through. And I've got I'm pretty it's a pretty small group that I hold, and I bring in new people each month. Um, through the 3 month process. And it's a really powerful container of massive transformation and change. And I'm excited to be holding space for that.
Awesome. Yeah, that does sound powerful. It sounds like chipping away at the non-essential, everything that's not
Mhm.
you, chipping away and then just leaving you.
Yes, yes, exactly. You
Awesome.
got it completely. And that's why I titled the program Mythic. It's because I believe deep within we have our own mythological self, like I described for myself. And the more you kind of pull away all of the gum, the guck that's gotten stuck onto your being, then you can live your radiant mythic self.
I love it. I love it. So we'll have healingkungfu.com, and you said at Healing Kung Fu, of course, on Instagram. If people want to book a session with you, they can find it in your description, right? In the bio.
Exactly, exactly.
All right. All right. Excellent. Wow, Devonte, thank you for coming on. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so surprised at time. I feel like we time traveled a
We
little bit
did.
here, but
We did.
it always happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for listening. I am deeply grateful for this time and for this space, and for you to have given me the chance to share these thoughts that have been lingering in my mind. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful.